Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Legends of the Dark Knight issue 1. Title changed officially to Batman Legends of the Dark Knight right around issue 36 or 37, so we're just going to label it that because that was the majority of the run. So this is part 1 of a story called Shaman. It's written by Denny O'Neil, pencils by Edward Hannigan, inks by John Beatty, letters by John Costanza, Richard Lewis colorist, Kevin Doyley assistant editor, Andrew Helfer editor. The inner cover painting was by George Pratt, and it's really cool. Now, like that indicates there are two covers. There's the black cover with the colored border. It came in 4 colors. It was blue, yellow, orange, and magenta. And that was more of a gimmick than anything else. The inner cover is the one that actually has the imagery on it. And this was, of course, hyped because it was a special collector's edition. It was also a more mature title and came out in 1989, making it the first solo Batman book since 1940. Now, it didn't stay a solo Batman book for very long. Robin eventually was introduced in here. But the story here starts off with the last bit of instruction that Batman was looking to get was from this bounty hunter, and he was out with him trying to apprehend this criminal. Well, unfortunately, the criminal got the upper hand, and some bad things happened. Unfortunately, it left Bruce without a jacket in Alaska, and he is near death when he is found by some natives who perform a ritual on him. He is saved, but the iconography of the bat was pretty prevalent there, and when he comes back, that does come into play. He goes out on his first attempt to fight crime. He punches Selena Kyle in that one, and he ends up injured, but the inspiration for the bat motif strikes again as a bat flies through the window, and then he goes out on his first outing as Batman, and he helps Leslie Thompson, but this woman that's there calls Batman the Chubala, and then really bad things happen, and we're left with a weird cliffhanger ending where we don't know what that was all about. This is a great book. It was a lot of fun, very good read, some great imagery, very reminiscent of Year One from Frank Miller, but there was a lot of interesting stuff with the Inuits here that I think really is overlooked a lot. So I'm looking forward to reading issue 2. Side note, in the center of the book, there is a poster insert for the film Shocker, so if you're a perfectionist, you're going to want to make sure that insert is there. But it was a lot of fun. I liked it quite a bit. I was actually surprised I liked it because I didn't think I was going to. But the art is great. The coloring is a little bit primitive because this is a book from 89 before computer coloring really caught on. So you'll notice that some copies the coloring is slightly askew, but I thought it worked out great. It was a very interesting story, and I'm looking forward to reading issue 2. I haven't read these in ages, and I've forgotten this entire storyline. So it was really fun to revisit this and see that it held up quite well. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Batman Legends of the Dark Knight issue 2. This is part 2 of the story Shaman, which is a 5-part miniseries within the regular series. Written by Denny O'Neil, pencils by Edward Hannigan, John Beatty inker, letters were by John Costanza, colors by Richard Lewis, assistant editor Kevin Dooley, editor Andrew Helfer. We start out with what appears to be a cult sacrifice. 2 off-duty cops looking to make a name for themselves bust in and try and break it up. Unfortunately, things don't go well because they shoot the cult leader twice and it doesn't even faze him. Unfortunately, both cops end up in a really bad situation, but again, the word Chubala comes up, and this is upsetting for Wayne because he heard that 6 months ago, which was issue 1, and now he's trying to figure out what it means and what the connections could be. He also discovers that some of his investment money, which he had invested in research in Alaskan tribes, was going to pretty good use, but the man who is doing the research seems a little less than honest. While Batman's trying to gather some information, he discovers some people that are attempting to kill a man who's related to the story, and he quickly finds out some information while in disguise from Captain Gordon. He's also exploring the opportunity to put together a bat cave, and we get to see some of that as well. Unfortunately, it looks like another murder is happening, and it may be getting pinned on Batman. We're we're left with a pretty interesting cliffhanger. There's a lot going on here. I'm trying not to give away the storyline because this was actually really fun. This is a really good story. It's a good murder mystery with this cult angle that may be related to the indigenous tribesmen that saved Bruce previously. Cover's pretty cool. I like that. It's a painting. Looks really nice. It's just a pinup though. Doesn't really tell you quite a lot about what's going on, but it is related. I like the art quite a bit. It's a nice clean style. There's some really cool scenes in here, and if they did some digital remastering, this would look really, really good. But unfortunately, they haven't reprinted this story in a very long time, so you'll have to track down the issues, and I highly recommend it. So far, it's been a lot of fun. It's a lot better than I remembered it being, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I'm looking forward to reading part 3. So, solid book all around. Very fun Batman story. And that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods, and as always, we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, issue 3. This is also part 3 of the Shaman storyline, written by Denny O'Neil, pencils by Edward Hannigan, John Beatty was the inker, letters by John Costanza, colors by Richard Lewis, assistant editor was Kevin Dooley, edited by Andrew Helfer. Unfortunately, Batman was too late to save Spurlock's assistant, and he almost got framed for the murder, but that doesn't mean Batman doesn't have work to do. He goes out and tries to find one of the thugs that tried to kill the police officer at the hospital and tracks him down to a drug buy. Now Batman's about to get some information out of him when he's hit from behind and then shot with an arrow by somebody wearing the Alaskan bat mask, which was stolen from the museum. Now, although he barely managed to survive that encounter, he does talk to Spurlock and finds out a little bit about Chubala and its adherents that believe in human sacrifice to avoid a horrific afterlife. There's no positive afterlife apparently. Unfortunately, although Bruce gets a lot of really good information, Spurlock is taken out of the equation by our mystery killer. Now, unable to determine what the connection is between the Alaskan tribe and Santa Prisca's Chubala, Bruce has to go back to Otter Ridge to talk to the tribe. And when he gets there, things have developed quite a bit, mostly because of Spurlock using Wayne's money to bring a lot more attention to it and civilizing the locals, as they claim. But the locals aren't very happy about the whole thing, and it looks like it's really destroyed a lot of their culture and beliefs, which a lot of people were already drifting away from. And Spurlock also brought in a lot of drugs and booze and stole artifacts. But there's somebody there that doesn't like Bruce finding out about this, and they try and take Batman and a few of his friends out. So he's already upset the locals, and now there's an assassin on the loose in Alaska, and we're left with a cliffhanger ending that looks like Batman might be in some trouble. This was a really good installment in the storyline. It was an interesting change to see what happened to the tribe after Batman left and what Spurlock did with the money. Also, Spurlock's information does seem to create more questions than answers. So there were some really good fight scenes in here, and it was a solid story. Really, really good storytelling in comic format. I think you would want to read the first 2 parts before diving in, though. They create a lot of context that you're going to miss if you haven't read them. But it is definitely worth tracking down and reading. I enjoyed this quite a bit. So, strong recommendation on this one. The cover's good, it does relate, and all the covers do create a sort of story, so that's pretty cool. But it is just a pinup, but an all-around great book that is absolutely worth tracking down. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, the links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Batman Legends of the Dark Knight, issue 4. This is part 4 of the Shaman storyline, written by Denny O'Neil, pencils by Edward Hannigan, inks by John Beatty, letters by John Costanza, colors by Richmond Lewis. Kevin Dooley was the assistant editor, and editor was Andrew Helfer. Pick up where we left off with the truck tumbling into the water. Batman was knocked out of the vehicle, but he has to go in and save the young woman and her grandfather. Thankfully, his suitcase was not damaged, and he is able to use his cape as a blanket to try and warm her. The shaman tells Batman that he has to tell the story, but there is no bat mask because that's what was stolen by Spurlock. But the shaman points out that Batman has a mask. It is when they get to the hospital that Bruce learns who is really behind this and what the motivation might actually be. So Batman has to fly back to Gotham and try and establish whether or not there is a connection with these killings retellings, and he has a lot of success with that. Unfortunately, the person that's behind all this may already be a couple steps ahead of Batman and has Alfred. So we're left with a cliffhanger ending that does not look good for Batman, but we'll see how it plays out. Overall, the story is fantastic. It's very fun, very exciting, good old-fashioned comic book adventure, and it plays out like a old cliffhanger serial with decent amount of action. Something that you thought was happening at the end of last issue isn't quite exactly the same thing. Batman putting on disguises, all kinds of cool stuff. It's a very well written story, and the art is really good. I like it quite a bit. Batman looks fantastic in this, but also the cover's pretty good. It would get me to buy the book. It's intriguing even if it is a pinup, so I am enjoying this miniseries. I haven't read these in decades, so I'm real excited to see the conclusion because I really was enjoying this, and I'm really sad they haven't reprinted a lot of these old stories. I'm kind of surprised, actually, with as much of the storylines that get reprinted, that they've not gone back to the Legends of the Dark Knight series to reprint some of these storylines. So if you can find these, I would absolutely recommend them. You can usually find them for about the cost of a new issue or less. I picked these up for about $2 a piece, except for issue 1 I think was $5, and I don't regret any of the purchases so far. So we'll see how the final chapter plays out, but so far I'm real happy with this. That's gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Batman Legends of the Dark Knight issue 5. This is the final installment of the Shaman storyline, written by Dennis O'Neil, pencils by Edward Hannigan, inks by John Beatty, letters by John Costanza, colors by Richmond Lewis. Assistant editor was Kevin Dooley, with editor Andrew Helfer. So while the Vulture Killer waits for Batman, Batman quickly figures out what's going on and ends up in a fight with him. Thankfully, he's still wearing the disguise from last issue, so when the knife comes at him, he manages to avoid too much in the way of injury. Unfortunately, the guy gets away, and Batman and Alfred have a good exchange while Batman goes hunting for the actual shaman. Now, it turns out the shaman is somebody that Batman knows, and he managed to piece it together thanks to the information Alfred gave him, and it explains why he was able to figure that out and how he's able to stop him. Some of which was set up last issue with more trickery than anything else that Batman uses to his advantage. Batman also has to track down the man who stole the mask, but sometimes you can't save everything. And while he returns the artifacts, the woman at the village has some kind of harsh words for Bruce, but in the end, things get resolved and Batman is better off for it. Overall, I would have to say this was a really fun issue. It's a good conclusion to the story. This would have made a good TV miniseries. It's an interesting Batman story from early on in his career, and that's what a lot of the early stories from this series were. And I think that works out pretty well. So a very good story with really solid art and an interesting cover. And the covers, like I said previously, all interconnect. I was not disappointed at all in the storyline. It actually came together really well with some good cliffhangers and a lot of really good action. So a solid story that probably should be reprinted if DC ever figures out what made them popular in the first place. So I highly recommend checking these out if you're looking for a good Batman story and one that doesn't have so much nonsensical, boring crap in it like a lot of the modern stuff does. Fun stuff, highly recommended. That's gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.